This is KUTV Primetime News with Irene Mwangi.
Thank you for staying tuned. As we promised, now let's focus on our discussion tonight, which is the BBI Reggae, looking into what next now that Parliament has passed the Constitutional Amendment Bill of 2020. Joining us live via Zoom is Alex Kubo, who is a political analyst. Many thanks indeed, Alex Kubo, for joining us tonight.
Good evening, everyone.
All right. Now, let's look into what happened in the Senate today. They passed the BBI bill, and this comes after tantrums and push and pull, the division that was witnessed concerning that particular bill. What do you make of the decision that Senate has made today, despite the push and pull?
I think what happened today in the Senate is something that we expected. We all expected that ultimately, despite the issues raised by a couple of senators, the BBI eventually sailed through. There are quite a number of dynamics that we have to also take into consideration why the events turned out as they did today. One of them is the issue of party position. You know very well the BBI, the brainchild, is a brainchild of the president and the former prime minister, Legality. And they're the two people who lead parties with most number of senators and parliament. So those parties took positions that they should pass the BBI. Number two, we saw Senator Oreng raise issues last week. So also the likes of senators allied to ODM and NASA coalition raised issues. The only thing that happened today that we have to take that into consideration is that political survival is very important. You could have raised the issue, but when it came to ultimately passing the BBI, then there is no way you could have voted no. If Orengo dared vote no, then certain political ramifications could have affected come 2022. Or the likes of Mutula Kilonzo and the rest. Voting no for the BBI and was not something that could have envisioned from Parliament allied Jubilee and ODM. But now you saw what happened now, those allied to or the deputy president, most of them voted no. Right? So it is something expected. So there was the issue of political survival, there was the issue of party position, and those two issues. Then there's the other issues far-fetched, but it also played a role, which has been highlighted by some senators, is the issue of intimidation and bribery. Yeah.
All right. Now, looking at it, when you look into both houses, the National Assembly and the Senate, we have had Deputy President William Ruto boast of numbers in both houses, and politics is all about numbers. When you look into how Senate voted and the National Assembly voted, do you think Deputy President William Ruto has lost grip on the House, which he once boasted much about?
Not really, Irene. If you look at, for example, let's just now give it a bigger, and let us look at the bigger picture, what transpired in the National Assembly and what transpired in the Senate. You will see allied of the Deputy President voting for the BBI. And it's not because they have betrayed the Deputy President, but it's because of the political dynamics at that particular time and the position that they find themselves in. If you look at certain areas are gaining, constituencies, and areas getting 1 or 2 or 3 constituencies, such a member of parliament will be in a precarious situation if they voted no. Because now, once they go back to the ground, the question that will be asked is, we had an opportunity to get these constituencies and you refused. So there will be an issue of him defending the seat. So we should not just look at it as isolated issues. We should look at it in totality, whereby you look at even the prevailing circumstances where there is the issue of political survival, which I think played a very big role. So I don't think the deputy president has lost his numbers. He has not lost his numbers. The only thing is the certain issues surpassed their loyalty, but they are still loyal to the deputy president. We saw the likes of the MP of what is his name? The guy from Nakuru.
Kimani Ngonjiri.
Yes, Ngunjiri came out and said, you know what, I support the president, the deputy president. The likes of Kati Dani. Just look at the dynamics. What is happening on the ground? What are the people on the ground telling them of parliament and dictating how you should vote is what took center stage.
All right. Now, when we look into the next step, we're expecting a referendum, but now we are having 7 petitions in both the Supreme Court and the High Court, which could hold the process altogether and makes IEBC not to make any particular move when it comes to the referendum here in the country. Looking into the different petitions, do they hold much in terms of halting the process altogether?
That's a very interesting question, Irene. If you look at the 7 petitions, that is Devin B and other versus AG and others, petition number 283 and 6 others, the consolidated petitions, the 7 petitions raise 17 salient issues. Those are the issues that the judges isolated in all the 7 petitions and agreed that those are the issues that ought to be determined come the judgment day. So if you try to just do a postmortem on those particular issues, you realize those issues raised by the petitioners in the 7 petitions attack both the process of that has been undertaken in the BBI and also the substance of the constitutional amendment bill. If you look at the substance of that is being attacked, they are trying to ask the court to determine whether certain constitutional doctrines apply in Kenya. For example, there is a doctrine of unconstitutional constitutional amendments. Does that doctrine apply? The issue of the unamendable constitutional provision, does that doctrine apply? The doctrine of basic structure, does that doctrine apply? Or the implied, the implied provisions whereby certain constitutional provision ought not to be amended. So if you look, those are the issues when they're talking about now the substance, attacking the substance of the constitutional amendment bill. Now, they are also going ahead to attack the process. They're asking themselves they're asking the court to determine whether proper public participation was conducted. They're asking the court to determine whether the steering committee of the BBI was was a body that is recognized by law. They're asking the question whether IEBC is properly constituted to conduct a referendum. They're asking the question about the funding and things like that. So the key issues that might actually bring the BBI to a grinding halt is the issue of public participation, for example. When they attack the issue of public participation, was it conducted, yes or no? Or did it meet the constitutional threshold set in that hotel? So there are quite a number of issues that if they are determined in the affirmative, they might, the BBI might suffer a huge blow. For example, the issue of whether certain constitutional provision should not be amended. They are talking about the judiciary. I'm sure they are leading to the issue of the ombudsman. They're talking about the executive, which is a very contentious clause in the BBI, where they're trying now to expand the executive to include prime minister, deputy prime minister. So if the court find rule in the affirmative, you'll see the BBI will not be as lucrative or as attractive as it is right now, because it will have been watered down significantly. Because just say, for example, because BBI is a political document. The moment the judges rule that the executive clause cannot be amended, I can tell you for free, the likes of the former prime minister will not be interested in BBI anymore. Right? They're talking about whether the issue of the ombudsman, right? So those salient issues might not necessarily stop the referendum, but they have a possibility of making the document look lucrative or not lucrative anymore. for certain political affairs.
All right, still on that, there has been a concern, and people have been asking this question, whereby if the courts have any power to stop any constitutional process, to thwart this particular process from the start, does the court have that particular mandate to hold a constitutional process here in the country?
Yeah, if you look at the jurisdiction of the High Court, it does have that particular jurisdiction. Because what they are trying to attack, as I mentioned again, is the issue of, for example, when they talk about public participation, the first port of call on the issue of public participation is the Constitution. And you ask yourself, what is the constitutional threshold? You know, the Constitution might not provide for it verbatim, the threshold. But if you look at the decisions by the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal on that particular issue, then it is very certain on the constitutional threshold when it comes to, constitutional changes or changes in law and things like that. So the court has jurisdiction. The court has jurisdiction on virtually on all those things. I know the politicians are trying to argue, and I heard Mbadi argue that if they are passed by the BBI, then they become constitutional automatically, which is true, but not at the very inception level. The question that the lawyers are asking, does it support the constitutional framework as is right now? Because it does distort the constitutional architecture and design at this stage, then the ripple effect will be significant to the extent that it might affect very vital clauses in the Constitution. And that is something that the court will do everything possible to protect. Yeah.
All right. Now, looking into the petitions, we are having 7 petitions. Some of them have been filed in the Supreme Court and others in the High Court. And some of these questions that have been raised in the several petitions somewhat tie along. Can we be having a situation whereby a Supreme Court makes a particular decision that might overrule that of the High Court, or a High Court make a decision that might overrule that of the Supreme Court?
If you look in Kenya, we have a hierarchy of courts. The Supreme Court reigns supreme. So a similar issue has been filed in the Supreme Court, has also been filed in the High Court. Then the High Court automatically is stayed, pending the determination of the Supreme Court. Once the Supreme Court determines that particular issue, it binds the lower court. It's called the doctrine of stare decisis, or the doctrine of stare decisis, where it's in layman's terms, the decision stands, and the doctrine of precedence, whereby the lower courts are bound by the decision of it.
All right. Now, once we move to the next stage, if, for example, the 7 petitions are determined and now we have to go back to the process of the referendum, IEBC is given the mandate to raise the question to Kenyans in the popular initiative of having the referendum. Deputy President William Ruto has not clearly stated whether he is in the yes or no campaign, but should he move to the no campaign, do you think he has the political muscles to go against the tide, given that the process will be quite rigorous and it will require a lot of resources as well as numbers, both from the members of parliament and also from the public and the county assemblies to mobilize numbers in the no campaign? Do you think he can sustain that particular campaign here in the country?
I think the deputy president might not want to be part of this particular war being waged by the president and the former prime minister against anybody who is speaking contrary to India. It will be very tactful of him not to be part of that no campaign for various reasons. One, it will be it is the victory. The government is determined to make sure that BBI passes. So whatever he does, whatever he does, there's a very high likelihood that he will fail in his tracks. Number 2 is that there's a very high possibility that the government will unleash state agencies, the ESCC, the KRA, the BCI, and anybody who tends to, preach a different gospel. Number three, the deputy president does not want to be in a duel with the former prime minister or the Serela coalition at this point. So the only thing that they will do, I think, this is my own personal assessment as a political pundit, is he might use other unconventional ways to try and push the no agenda. Okay? He might not go out in person campaign to say no, to campaign for no, but he might use other unconventional ways to do that. And the deputy president is a very creative politician and very industrious as well. So he might use other unconventional ways. The thing that we hope right now is the issue of the issue that most of us Kenyans are going through, with how the economy is right now. So they want to maybe feed on that anger and feed on that frustration so that people vote no, not as because they don't believe in what in the BBI, just to prove a point that, just to pass a message that it is not a priority at the moment.
All right.
So, yeah.
All right, but why will he shy away, given that in the 2010, when we were passing the 2010 constitution, he used to be in the no campaign, and it is something that built his political career. And in this particular referendum, it has been termed as something that will propel the 2022 succession politics and presidential race. Why will he be behind the curtain, given that it might build his political move moving forward?
In 2010, the deputy president was in the NOC and he was trying to consolidate his base, which he did successfully. But this time around, there are so many things that come into play. The deputy president has significantly solidified his base. I don't think his base has moved at all. You see, even with the kind of the likes of Gideon Moi, you saw what happened the other day. Gideon Moi, most of his MPs in Baringo voted no in the National Assembly. It is very interesting because 2022, the president may not want to be part of this because, one, he has already solidified his base at his value. Number two, he might not want to be in a direct duel with the president to the extent of distorting whatever he has solidified with Mount Kenya. Because Mount Kenya, right now, as we speak, the deputy president has an edge, a significant edge over any other contender in the 2022. But if he comes and he comes directly, trying direct combat with the president, there might be an issue with apathy Mount Kenya, or trying to, it becomes a duel between an outsider and an insider. And once that duel ensues, there is always that perception that the insiders will want to protect their own, fight the outsider, and then go back and continue the wrangling. So the deputy president might not want to talk that much. Okay? So those are the two reasons that the deputy president, actually, even if I was advising him, I would tell him there's a possibility that this document will fail once it goes to the people. So he does not really need much, but he only needs to use the unconventional means that I talked about to try and push that law.
All right. Because of time, Mr. Alex Kubo will have to wind up the interview there, but thank you for your perspective, of course, concerning what is ahead in that particular process of the referendum here in the country. All right, that has been Mr. Alex Kubo.